Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Bridge for people that we have here live at the Bridge and also people online. So we've been wanting to do this talk for quite some time about mentoring at Green School, and it's a really, really important process and way for parents to be getting involved. So we're just going to go through some points today. I'm joined by former Green School teacher Noan Fesnoux, who is kind of revered as one of the best teachers to ever come through Green School, not to shock him. And he was very involved with the experiential learning programs, and he has mentored many students. So thanks for coming here today and joining, Noan.
Really excited to hear about these myths. So shall we?
Okay, so let's go. So we're going to walk today through 10 myths about mentoring at Green School. And then we'll have a little bit of room at the end for some Q&A and some discussions. So myth one that we hear consistently from everybody is, I have nothing to contribute. And this is one of the biggest reasons why we don't get people who come, because they see people who have run marketing agencies or manage NGOs or do all these different things, and they feel that they just don't have the skills. But the thing is everybody has something to contribute. And it just isn't about the hard skills that we're talking about of being able to, how to do a marketing plan or a business plan or even how to be presenting. Oftentimes, and more often than not, it is the soft skills. It's about how we support the students, so someone who has good listening ears and has the ability to support the students is actually more important at times than just the hard skills.
I've seen this with a guy who had expertise in lawnmower repair, which is something you'd never expect to be super practical in school, but just guiding kids through a process and showing them how he would cover it made it so that they were able to unpack the way that they could learn. Yeah. And so a simple thing, while the project wasn't about lawnmower repair, it was still helpful to understand how somebody would address that.
Yeah. So we have lawnmowers. So if you know about lawnmowers, we need you. We need lawnmower people. Myth two, everyone should be a mentor. Okay, so now this is a tricky one, right? Because the reality is while people have something to contribute, not everyone is really set up to be a great mentor. And we kind of have a few of these different people that we've seen over the years. And I've been involved with mentoring students, mostly in middle school and high school, for 8 or 9 years now, ever since we started the Greenstones and the Quest. But you get people who come in and they're so eager to wanting to be help to students that they lose perspective about what they're trying to do, and they overwhelm the student with their enthusiasm. We have people who are the agendaists that we know that before they even talk to the student what they're trying to do, they have a point that they want to make, and they have a presentation that they want that student to be doing. Then, of course, we have the dictator, and they're kind of the worst. They really do not listen at all, and they just tell the kids what to do. And then we have people who are slightly disillusioned, who can't quite pick up on the cues when the kids aren't responding to them, and they just aren't understanding what they're supposed to be doing. And then we have the non bona liberis. Do we know what these ones? Anybody Latin?
No bones.
This means I'm just not great with kids. So some people are just not great with kids, and it isn't a problem. And it doesn't necessarily mean that if you can't mentor, you don't have something to contribute. There are many ways of still offering things or sharing materials or sharing a business plan. But the best mentor is right here. They're neutral and not overly attached to the outcome of what's happening. Yeah?
I totally agree that not everyone should be a mentor. I've seen a lot of people come in with the right spirit, but missing at its core a connection with the kids. And sometimes mentoring isn't even about having these defined, but being able to come and arrive at where the kid's at. Some kids need a cheerleader at the beginning who turns into somebody who can guide them later on. Others need sort of that harsh reality check. So it needs to be something where you're connecting with a human who can understand the next step for you.
Yeah, those are great points, Noan. So myth 3. Parents make great mentors for their own kids. This should just have a big no on it.
Agreed.
So, parents, you love your kids. We all love our kids. We all have them. That's why we're here at Green School. But the problem is it's this little psychoanalytical process that emerges as the kids are up there, and then our own fears start to appear. We made a mistake presenting when we were in the 4th grade. We're afraid our kids are going to fail. We have a failure of not understanding a concept. We're afraid our kid's going to do it. But it's also the fact that we're just biased, right? I mean, I have mentored, well, I shouldn't say that. I was involved with both of my kids, Chayton and Chenoa, and I had to completely change how I interacted with them. So it's just something to really be having an understanding, and you have to have different rules of engagement if you want to be involved with your kids. But if they don't want you involved, you just have to let it go and then go cry in your bedroom.
To that effect, it isn't just about how the parent approaches it. The kids will approach it totally differently. So you could have the verbatim same message from a parent and the kid will shut it down, and then you say the exact same thing from a non-parent and they go, really interesting.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, as parents, we do have a little asterisk next to our name. We are just a little dumber and less helpful than others, even though it's not really an objective assessment. Okay, myth 4, it's your TED Talk. To me, this is one of the most important ones because what happens is that we often are focused on the final presentation and what is going to be happening on that stage. And that is not what Greenstones and the quests are about. This is a journey that starts, it's a year-long process as to what they're going through. And we talk about it. The teachers talk about it. The head of the different learning neighborhoods talk about it. But we still start to begin this focus around the end product. Now, it isn't to say that presenting and these other aspects aren't important. They absolutely are. And it is a great part of the learning process to get up there and have a final product and do it. But it really is a path of discovery for the child. This isn't going to make or break them in life. This is where they are experiencing and learning things about themselves. And that really is the most important thing about it.
Couldn't agree more, and it's so easy.
I'm glad that you keep agreeing with me, Noan. This is good. Yeah. You're easy to work with.
Good mojo. In this, I see so often that idea that the end product is a talk, but actually the end product is undefined. It could be so much. And the talk at the end is the storytelling after you have a product or you have gone through a process and failed to deliver a product. And so rather than mentor towards a talk, you mentor towards the process. And then the storytelling comes as an afterwards piece.
Yeah, that's a great point. Myth 5, every student needs a mentor. Now this one I'm going to, we didn't necessarily want to put this up there, but it is kind of important. And it just means that students are on a range. And there are some students who just do not want a mentor. I mean, we have a student this year who has self-declared that he really doesn't want a mentor. But then speaking to him afterwards, he says privately, yes, I have people that I want to be with. But the part here is understanding what the student wants. Mm-hmm. Some do need some more assistance. Some are afraid to ask for assistance. Some are very comfortable in what they're trying to do, and they're very deliberate. And so we need to give them a little bit more space. Now, this is very, very, very rare. And even the ones who may not need a mentor, they need support and help around them. And they're often not aware that they actually have people who are around them that are supporting them and helping them.
So after saying I couldn't agree with you more, I disagree with this.
No one.
I know. Sorry.
Okay, I'm going to give you some direct feedback right now.
Okay. why I disagree with this is just this idea that every student does need mentorship. I think the problem, and you kind of went around this, is saying it by name and creating something that's very linear isn't what every student needs. But they do need consultation and feedback. And so mentorship is core for learning, period. However, telling a kid they have to meet with a mentor 1 hour each week and they have to fill out this form, that can actually be counterproductive.
Okay, so I actually agree with Noan on this. And my reluctance to put the slide up, he has now convinced me to do it, so thank you. So we now have 9 myths about mentoring at Green School. Myth 6, I will definitely contact you. Okay, so this is an interesting one, because typically what happens is we hold a gathering in, say, the Songcap or one of the places. We get 50 parents that show up. We're meeting with all the kids. There's a lot of interaction and a lot of things that are happening. Then the next week or 2 weeks, we have, roughly a third of that, the parents show up, and now they're meeting more closely with kids. And the parents are there and they're doing their mentoring. And almost every kid will say, oh, I'll follow up with you. I will contact you. Thank you so much. That was so helpful. I'll email you. I'll WhatsApp you. And the reality is I would probably say statistically, less than 10%, if not 5%, if not even 1% of them will contact you. Now, do not be offended. I have, like Michael Jordan, how many shots did the guy miss? Tens of thousands of shots. I have been rejected so many times, and it isn't even rejection. It's just like they just want to kind of have sort of a comfortable interaction with you, but then, they just sort of want to be able to move on and things like that. So just don't be offended. And this last part, when you see a student that's walking at you up the path and you're like, oh, I need to share with them, about how to be a life coach or something like that. And then you see them you're going like this, moving towards them enthusiastically, and you see them veer off. They're doing that intentionally.
There's a really big part in this where, as a teacher, I get asked all the time, can you mentor me on this and that? And I feel like part of it is we're in their environment. We're the adults they are most comfortable with. And so I think a lot of this comes to discomfort. It's really hard to step out of that space and say, hey, I'm going to talk to this adult I barely know, even if we connected and have a good energy. It's a really hard space to connect with them. And I find myself in exactly this shoe. I'm walking, I'm like, hey, there's the kid I was meant to mentor. And I could just see them do let's find a new place to go.
So this is where we need to put our egos aside and just be strong and just be true. Okay, myth 7, it's the mentor's fault. It is not always the mentor's fault. Sometimes it is the mentee, right? And we're not going to spend a lot of time on this right now because this is really what is worked out in the class about what is important about being a good mentee and how you're able to be receiving information and things like that. But a few of the things is it's really about trust. When someone says that they want to speak to you, the adults and the parents, they really do want to speak with you. So just believe them when they're sitting there and they want to be helping. I recommend this to every single student, even to my own kids when they were still in middle school, starting a LinkedIn account, at least by grade 11. Green School has one of the most remarkable networks in the world. Like you can start anything here at Green School with the parent and the teachers and the people who are just related within the community. And if someone isn't working out for you, then you just let them know. That is totally fine. You may have 1 or 2 meetings. Parents are fine. You can just say, oh, thank you. I have what I need from you, and I now don't need anything else from you. And also speak to someone who already did a presentation. Go back and look at the old Greenstones or the old quests and some of the, this probably isn't something that the little primary kids need to do for their footprints and things like that. So it is a balance. It is a two-way relationship between a mentor and a mentee.
And I think this is part of where there needs to be honest conversations between not just the mentor and mentee, but this is where the educator really comes in, is setting parameters, holding the mentees accountable, but also understanding that it's a process. You're going to learn and you're going to grow through it. And so if everybody just says, look, we're not putting blame out there, we're just taking a chance to reflect on how to engage as human beings, that's amazing. That's learning.
Okay, so it's not the parents' fault all the time, okay? Even though that's what they're going to tell us. Footprints are the same as Greenstones. They aren't. You have little people. For the footprints, it's about a singular idea. It's about 4 or 5 slides. It's quite chaotic, although chaos reigns, within all of them. But for the footprints and the little people, it is almost all about love and support, and just helping them explore and asking them questions and encouraging them. And whatever they want to do is totally fine. If they want to do it about a dog, if they want to do it about a cat or a little plant, don't say, maybe you could do something that's a little bit more exciting, right? This gets back to some of the earlier slides where we're trying to impose our own ideas and thoughts. So little people, leave them alone and let them play. As you move up into Quest, this is the grade 8 presentation, listen. And that is a key for all these. But you really want to find out, what is their key interest? What is it they're interested in? And grade 8s, they're dealing with a lot more stuff. It's middle school. There's a lot more things processing in their head and their hearts. So you really want to help them explore ideas, give them a little bit of idea around structure and support. And then Greenstones, and much of this presentation, I would say, is mostly about Greenstones. It is about listening and reflecting back to them. We all do it. I do it. When someone is talking to me, I have a point that I want to be making, and I kind of sometimes even quit listening to what someone is doing. You can't do that with the students. You want to be able to say, oh, that is really wonderful. So if I understand this right, you want to be giving a presentation on poetry, and you want to be dealing with light and darkness, and they are able to reflect back on that. So keep this in mind, right? So everyone who is here, today and listening online, or, watching this later, where your little people are is really important.
Yeah, I totally feel that with the little guys. I remember being in grade 8 and being just shell-shocked by doing a presentation in front of people. And that's kind of where you're at in that stage of life. And supporting that, you don't have to eliminate criticality. I think there's still a nurturing side, but you have to be a lot more careful with how you present feedback. At this stage, they should be a bit weathered. They should be ready for some of the more realities that we're not geniuses who know everything, and that we can get a lot of really positive feedback by listening.
Yes, geniuses who do not know everything. Okay. You're presenting on hippos. That's great. So this is another sort of misleading thing. When you're sitting there and you believe that the student, and again, I would say this is mostly for the older, the Quests, and definitely with the Greenstones, when they're presenting on something of, say, they want to be helping on water distribution in parts of Bali. That really isn't what they're interested in. There is a reason why they are picking water distribution. It could be because their parents are involved with supporting. It could be because they had a traumatic situation where they didn't have water. It could be that they watched a documentary or video where they saw children who did not have access to water. So it's really, really important that we understand this, and keep in mind that they are going to change their topics. 90% of them change their topics twice. I'd say another 50% 3 times. And so it is an ongoing, and they're changing it because it isn't really about the specific topic. There is something that's happening below. And so as you go into this, and we talk about this a little bit more in a second, you really want to listen and identify what they are trying to say. It's getting into the second and third layer. So they may be talking about hippos, but what they're actually talking about is what's the situation in Africa. And the third layer is starvation. And the fourth layer to that is that their parents grew up in a very poor part of the world and they're trying to get out of it. And so this is tricky. And this takes patience, and this does not come out in one student meeting. And so this may happen in the second one or the third one. And just keep asking why. Why is this important to you? Why do you care about this? Why are you interested in it? If you are not asking why and you're just telling them, then you are not being a good mentor in this situation.
I think when it comes to things like this, really focusing on the process. Don't think your role as a mentor is coming in as a subject matter expert. You're really there to guide in a process, and getting to the core of it, there's amazing tools like human-centered design that can help to really reveal those layers of why. And getting deeper down is critical, not just for the student, but also for that relationship of mentor-mentee.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, myth number 10. It's just a presentation. Now, this is repeating a little bit, but I want to highlight something in here. So for the first few months, and kind of going back to layers, it's just a topic for them. They're trying to find something that's interesting. Many of them are saying like, oh, this is boring. No one's going to be interested in it. And so that is what we sort of need to be getting them by. But if you kind of go back and you look at some of the topics through the years, I mean, one student happened to be my son. He gave a topic on fermentation. It had nothing to do with fermentation. That was an opening slide that was comedic, but it was about what is good education and who are amazing teachers. And actually, Noan, you were sort of one of the teachers that he was referencing. One student one year, and this was one of the most remarkable ones, he was rebuilding a motorcycle. And it was interesting because there was criticism within the community about, oh, why is Green School allowing a boy to be rebuilding a motorcycle? And what's happening. And then a few of us knew what he was doing, but then he gets up to the Sonkep and the day of the Greenstone presentation, and it had nothing to do with motorcycles. He had no father. And he was here alone with a single parent, and he stood up on stage and he brings up the motorcycle, and then he brings up the Balinese man who was here supporting him as a father figure who helped him build this motorcycle. And it was one of the greatest twists of all time. He had no idea that he wasn't doing it for impact or a twist. This is what it was about. So this is really important to keep in mind. So really, if you take one thing away from this presentation, just remember, think about motorcycles. And then we've had a few. I mean, we've had kids who are talking about shame, but it's really been about sexual abuse. We had one who just was talking about dancing, but it was all about how she had lost her passion because she wasn't getting support, from the community. And this was an amazing one. Starts off talking about a turtle necklace, but this was again about education and the education system supporting extroverts, and hers was about introversion and how we can be changing the education system. And I just want to talk about this because this was a really important point. A few years back, there was at Petaluma High School in California, there was the valedictorian was giving a speech. And it was a young girl, who's graduating from school, going off to college. And she is giving her speech and her presentation. And she then starts to talk about touching upon an experience that she had at the school. And she says many people within the school and the community were supporting her, but a few hadn't supported her. And so as this is happening, you see the administration behind her, it was made possibly the principal, goes up and unplugs her microphone because they are afraid she's going down a path that she was told not to go down. What had happened was that this valedictorian had been raped, and she was giving her presentation, and she was not going to go down this path, but the rapist was in the audience. And the school does not allow her to express her opinion and her views. Now, luckily, what happened on this got on national news. She was on all the talk shows. It turned, instead of being this isolated thing, it had a great outcome. At the same time, 1 or 2 weeks later at Green School, there was a girl at Green School who was giving her presentation on an incident that happened to her, not within Green School, it was outside of Green School, where she had been raped. And she was sharing with this online, and she had 400 or 500 people in the SONCAP supporting her, the teachers supporting her, the school was giving her a voice. And so this is really an important part, particularly as we talk about, and these I know are extreme examples, but it is very important for people to understand on the Greenstones, these are not light topics. This is a journey. This is a personal journey, and it is a healing process for many of these students.
Yeah, to sum that up, I think it's the student's story to tell. They're going to tell it. As a mentor, you're there to support them finding that story, and that mentor relationship is really just one of support and structuring, sometimes pushing their boundaries a little bit, but in the end, they will find this piece, and it's their voice that will make that shine.
And so finally, we have just 2 more slides. So just quickly, everyone can contribute. Self-reflection by the mentor is really important. Parents are the best mentors for the kids. Well, I'm so sorry. Parents are not always the best mentors. I'm getting stuck within my myth twist that I'm doing here. It's a journey for the students. Some kids want to work more alone, but as we will now kind of with Noan, we'll move this to 9 myths. Put your ego aside, keep it in check. Mentees have a role to play, age appropriate for who you're working with within the student, ask a lot of why, and listen with your heart as to what they are trying to say to you. Yeah.
Beautiful summary. Thanks for letting me join in.
Yeah, well, just one more thing, so that, how are we trying to make it easier for you at the school and at the Bridge? The Bridge just recently created with Green School a LinkedIn account. I think it's called the Green School Business Networking, the Green School Professional Network. This is a place for alumni students and alumni parents and alumni teachers to go. That does not mean that you have graduated from Green School. You could have been here just for the 4th grade or the 5th grade. You could have been here for 1 year. It is the entire network of the Green School community. And we just launched this recently. It's building, but this is a great place for students to be able to connect and find possible mentors, and then even after they graduate to be able to do things. More and better weekly communication from the Green School teachers to mentors, and we will continue to update from the Bridge about what's happening. A much earlier schedule established for parents, and admittedly, one thing in this, the past 2 years has been complicated. With all the lockdowns and the shutdowns, it has thrown off a lot of this scheduling, so it has made it a little bit more difficult, but still all this stuff applies to the situation that we had before. Teachers showing students how to engage and be good mentees, and we have some great examples, and that really is a secondary presentation that works, from the head of the high school, the head of the middle school, and the head of the primary, to be speaking specifically with parents about how to be engaging with the students. You'll see updates in the Bridge newsletter, and I sort of skipped to this point, but specific requirements for each grade. So any closing thoughts or comments, Noan?
Super insightful. I feel like you really highlighted some important pieces there. It's not easy being a mentor, but it's super rewarding. So I encourage people who are like, hey, I feel that need to connect with another human, do it.
Yeah. So thank you. Thank you for being online. Thank you for being here today. And for those of you who listen into the future, hopefully this provides you some insight to being a mentor at Green School. Thank you, Noan, for being here today, and we'll talk to you soon. And we'll leave it open now for a little bit of questions and answers, from people to be able to share if you'd like. Anybody? And we don't need to. We can. Anybody online? Oogie, if they had a question? Yes.
One is for at the beginning and one is for at the end. So say you've established that you're going to mentor somebody. Do you ever sort of recommend sort of establishing some sort of an agreement before you start? You know, the kind of thing where you might say, well, the kind of thing I would say is like, this is what I'm good at and this is what I'm not so good at. And, you know, you as a student, what do you think might be a struggle here? And what is going to be your real plus point, so that you can kind of get it out in the open. You know, if the student was to say, I'm a real procrastinator, then you can say, okay, and how can I help you without sort of being a nag, so that you kind of get those things kind of on the table before you even begin the thing you do. One more question as well? A second question, which is, if you're going along as a parent, and I have not been in this situation, if you're going along as a parent and you can see there's going to be some almighty disaster happening, because you can just see that there's been a great enthusiastic start and then there's a kind of giant lull in the middle. What do you sort of recommend doing when you can see it coming and you don't want to be the nag? How do you manage that process?
Okay. So the agreement and the almighty disaster. So I'm sure Noan may have some comments as well too. I do think it is important to have a general agreement, and we sort of reflect on some of these points, and I think it is self-reflection and working with the students. But the most important thing is you say, how can I help you? That really is the key. What do you need and how can I help you? And when we do the Greenstones, that is one of the questions we begin with everything. Because one part, we didn't talk about the process today, but Greenstone and Quest students come in and present at the bridge, and they do a preliminary one. Sometimes they do a follow-up presentation, and then everyone is there. And that is one of the questions that Carol will ask every student: how can we help you? And they even have it up on the slide with Ibu Harriet kind of directs them on that. So I would say that would be on the first one. Yeah. And then anything to add to that?
Just thinking about kids in general. You've had the chance to warn them about things in the past. How do they respond? So if they're really receptive to warning signs, hey, you might want to do this, and they actually respond, it's good. But avoid the nagging piece, and then also the piece of, is this going to be actually adding to their stress, or am I preventing stress in the future? Because chances are the kid's stressed. So if you can say, let's stop and think, am I just going to put some words out there and they're going to get more like flustered, or is this actually going to help? Case by case basis, really.
And then on the almighty disaster, so I will say this. I have seen every Greenstone presentation that's ever been done, and they have all been good. I would even say they've all been great. And so now some may appeal to some may be a better presentation, but they all have turned out just fine. And even to one extreme where I remember sitting with Ibu Leslie, who was the head of the high school at the point, and a student was getting ready to get on stage for the Greenstone. And Leslie says to me, she goes, I have no idea how this is going to go, because she just changed her Greenstone this week. And it ended up being one of the most fantastic Greenstones ever done. And so if they have the structure and the support, and the one thing is that the teachers, they're working with them every single day. They are going to have a presentation. They're going to have a topic. It is going to end up being fine. And the parents are fine. And there is more stress in the audience with parents. I've been sitting up in the audiences and I've seen parents ringing. They've been turning to me going, is this going to be okay? I'm like, they're fine. How are you? And so I would just support them and love them. That would be my comment. Any other thoughts? Ibu Carol.
Yeah, I probably should have presented that like a year ago for me. I mean, it's really hard for me as a parent. Now I have Tiago on senior year, and I've mentored so many students before, but it's so hard when it's your own kid, So I think that I love when you put it there, parents shouldn't be mentoring their kids, and I'm trying to do that, but it's so hard because, you wanna get involved, you wanna participate. So what I've been doing with Tiago, I've just been, hey, how is it going? And how is everything? And do you need any help? But he not really trying to engage too much because he actually doesn't want to. So yeah, I don't know.
And I would just say, I think this is one bit of a problem, and I do think it's sad. And at the Bridge, I mean, this is why it's the motto. It's Green School for Grownups, and we tell people take your parent hat half off at the door, because we have such. I mean, you, Carol, you're a photographer. You've traveled the world. You have seen things. You know more about fermentation and process and oils and agroforestry than anybody who I know, right? But your kids are going to look at you, like, well, she's my mom. And it's like with me. I mean, I've run companies and businesses and done things, and my kids look at me and they're kind of like, okay, thanks, Dad. I'll go talk to this person. And so it is a sad thing. But I think if we all go back and remember when we were little, like, we were quite similar. So it is this weird relationship. Okay, Carol says she would be worse. And so anyways, I think if we realize that truth, then we're like, okay, I was the same. How do I, and so, it's an interesting process.
And actually, something I really appreciated seeing was when the students came up and presented, it was a month or two ago, in front of people. And part of the mentorship process, it can be distributed. So they were getting a lot of feedback from many people. I felt like there was a piece of that detached them from that relationship of, oh, this person said that, so I have to listen. So something that's a bit more open feedback is really helpful at some points. And then to that, there does need to be an additional process where the student, the mentee, is accountable, saying, all right, I've got feedback. Now what am I going to do with it? So it isn't just about getting great feedback. It's actually how you flip that into actions that you take.
I think the last thing I wanted to say, just as a role of the parent,
Yes,
in this process, because every year I see, that the parents getting just as stressed actually as the children. So I'm just wondering if there was kind of one bit of advice that you could give to the parents that would really help them to just trust their kids that it's going to be okay.
well, I mean, I do think I think it is a couple. I think one is just trusting that it's going to be okay. I mean, what I told you, it is a fact. I have never seen a bad presentation. So parents should walk away, parents should walk away with that, and parents should understand that they are going to be fine on the day, and they're going to get up there and do something that's great. I'd say the best thing to do is really help them to just find their interest. If they are interested and passionate about something, it makes everything much smoother. It really does. And that just gets into reflecting back on the topics.
I like the chill, but then also thinking about like what would be the best thing they take away from this. And to me, the piece that I feel is really profound is it's an exercise in independence. And so your role has to be limited by definition, because if you are there supporting them, helicoptering, all of that, what ends up happening is they are robbed of the fundamental sort of outcome that you want. So chill. Just remember, they're doing something independently. It's going to work out because things will. And it's up to them.
Well, thanks, Noan. And I'm just really happy that you were a mentor to both of my kids, and you have been a mentor to me as well, too. So it's nice being up here with you. And
Same there, Puck.
yeah, so it's thank you. And thank you, everybody, for listening in today. And we hopefully you're able to walk away with this and to be a little bit of a mentor. So thank you, and we'll see you again soon.